Thank you. Please sit down. Thank you very much. Excellent. Nice to see you guys. Well, this is going to be a very happy day for us. We have some really genuine smiles on our faces because this is such a terrific opportunity to welcome Ken Atha here from the San Francisco branch of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. We always say OSHA, and then even when we say what those letters mean, Occupational Safety and Health, the words kind of roll off our tongue, and we don't necessarily think quite as much as we should and ought to about what that means. Occupational health and safety. One would think almost automatically that, well, what's more important than that, than occupational health and safety? And yet these positions associated with it, I should say, were mercilessly cut in the previous administration. And as a result, there was genuine concern in President Obama's administration and among the public servants, professionals in the administration in the San Francisco branch, in that region of which we were a part, that we were severely compromising that occupational health and safety. And so when this administration came into responsibility and had its obligations, Director Dwight Takamine, whose commitment in this area was well known, and with the assistance and help of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, with someone very familiar with the construction side, the business side of occupational health and safety, Audrey Hidano, reached out to Ken Atha, Ken Nishiyama Atha, by the way, Kauai boy. We're infiltrating the whole government over there, right? We got Eric Shinseki from Kauai, now we got Ken from Kauai, Ken Atha. So they were very, very receptive to what Dwight and Audrey and the staff at Department of Industrial Relations and our High-Osh people, our Hawaii branch, those that were left, those that were carrying on the tradition of service that was represented by Hawaii's OSHA. We weren't covering the hazards the way we should. The number of inspections that should have been made were not being carried through simply because we did not have the personnel and the capacity to do it. We have to meet standards. We have to enforce those standards. We have to cover the private sector and the public sector. We have to operate training programs. It's not just a matter of the state or the federal government showing up and pointing fingers. Quite the opposite. A good portion of the time of occupational and safety professionals and health professionals is in training, in mitigation, in pointing out where improvements could be made. And this is in everybody's interest. This is not something that's imposed upon business. Quite the opposite. This enables business to be proactive in seeing to it that we don't increase workers' compensation difficulties, challenges, expenses. This allows for productivity to increase. This raises morale in any institution where the inspections and the training are taking place, public or private, because people know that their interests are being looked after and that they're confident in their work and in the productivity that ensues from that kind of confidence. So Hawaii is one of 27 states and territories that are currently operating state plans, and we're very, very pleased then that the outreach that we engaged in when 32 of the 51 occupational safety and health positions were eliminated, when we made our a recruitment, when we made our assurances to the regional office in San Francisco that we were going to carry through on it, and could they help us and work with us, I can tell you that Ken Atha and his crew in the regional office in San Francisco reached out and turned to us, and this kind of cooperation is something that I wanted specifically to emphasize today. That's why we're doing this in a public way. This is a good example, I think, of the kind of recovery that the President had in mind when he put together the Recovery and Reinvestment Plan, when he indicated that we were going to go to the core elements of public service to see that those basic positions, agricultural inspections for invasive species and to be able to take care of imports and exports, occupational safety and hazard mitigation. This is the kind of basic return to positions that we need in order to meet our public obligations. So we assured our federal counterparts that we were serious about workplace health and safety, and that we were acting on it. So the agreement, the enforcement authority, with temporary transfer from the state to OSHA, allows us to continue to fill previously cut positions. It ensures that regulatory enforcement will continue in the interim. Responsibility for that enforcement will be returned to us when our capacity is equal or greater to that of OSHA. This will take a little bit of time for us to get back totally on track, but our commitment is complete, and we're able to make it with a sense of confidence and assurance because of the openness, the cooperation, the collaboration of Ken Atha and the OSHA people in San Francisco, and I'm very pleased to introduce him at this point. Ken? All Hawaii is waiting for your remarks. Thank you very much. Let me put that up for you.
All right, thank you.
Whoops.
That's great.
I thought I was doing that.
That's good.
There we go.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It really is a pleasure to be here today. Today, the state of Hawaii and the Occupational Safety and Health Administration will sign an agreement to jointly rebuild and strengthen workplace safety and health in Hawaii. Under the leadership of Secretary of Labor Hilda Solis and Assistant Secretary of Labor for OSHA, Dr. David Michaels, OSHA is committed to ensuring good jobs for everyone. And good jobs means safe jobs, which is why we're going to sign this operational status agreement today. In the agreement, it outlines how OSHA and the Hawaii Occupational Safety and Health Division, or HIOSH, will work together to meet safety and health goals and assure safe and healthful working conditions for Hawaii's workers. Under this agreement, federal OSHA will temporarily assume responsibility for enforcement in select industry while HIOSH rebuilds its capacity. In addition to providing enforcement, we will also provide training and program operation support, which I believe will enable HIOSH to reassume sole enforcement authority. When Congress enacted the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, it created an opportunity for federal and state partnerships to promote safety and health. Section 18 of the law allows states to develop and enforce occupational safety and health standards in the context of an OSHA-approved state plan. And that's in order to meet OSHA's mission to assure safe and healthful working conditions for all by setting, enforcing standards, and also providing training, outreach, and education assistance. And in 1984, the state of Hawaii received final approval for HIOSH to operate its plan. One of the key advantages for state plans like HIOSH is that they cover state and local employees. They're not covered by federal OSHA. Additionally, states oftentimes have more flexibility to deal with workplace hazards and to implement innovative approaches for both enforcement and standard setting to protect the workforce. An example of this is Hawaii implementing a requirement for employers to have a written safety and health program. They've also established lower permissible exposure limits for hazardous chemicals. And they've also established a lower height requirement for fall protection in steel erection. And these are just a few examples of how Hawaii has exceeded what federal OSHA is doing. And because federal OSHA has the responsibility for effective oversight of state plans like HIOSH, and to ensure that all workers in America are protected. To me, this is a win-win situation, and we are really pleased to assist in this effort. Through the signing of this agreement today, the commitment by Governor Abercrombie and also Director Takamine, as well as the support of Senator Inouye and the congressional delegation, I am confident that we can rebuild a safety and health program Hawaii can be proud of. Thank you and mahalo.
I'm very pleased that Ken mentioned my former colleague, Secretary Solis. I know personally of her commitment to working people across the country and to seeing to it that businesses have a safe and healthful environment. And the person that we've counted on to carry through on that commitment here in Hawaii is our Director of the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, Dwight Takamine. His record of accomplishment was well known throughout the state, and of course it is part of a legacy of commitment going back 2 generations now to his dad, Yoshiro Takamine, who I think many of you know was a mentor to me when I was in the legislature and has been a lifelong source of counsel and advice. And believe me, all the things that anybody may be upset with me about, I did on my own because I forgot what Yoshiro told me. Thank you. Dwight, please.
Well, thank you very much, Governor, for those comments. But the only point I wanted to make was that I think this is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for the Abercrombie administration and the Obama administration to work together on a very important policy in this state to improve worksite safety. And certainly that's appreciated. And I'm glad, Ken kind of made reference to our senior senator and Jennifer being part of the audience, because I think certainly our senior senator has been a strong advocate throughout decades in terms of, protecting the rights and interests of all of the workers here in our state. And so in this matter also, we got some good guidance and support. So thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Governor.
No, I think we're going to get to the signing. I think we have, Ken, two documents to sign. Twice. Okay. There we go. You go that side and I'll go this side. It's probably best that we sign where our names are.
I'll try it. Thank you.
Here we go. Let's see. We're going to take questions, so I guess we got to leave that up. Where should we stand? How about like here? How's that? All right. Yes.
Just trying to follow the math.
Any question?
How many positions are we still short?
I'm going to let Dwight get to that because this is an ongoing process.
Sure. Okay, so these are legally required minimum staffing requirements, and therefore currently, as the governor indicated in his opening remarks, as a result of the previous administration, I guess doing the cuts that they did, we failed to hit all 3 what is referred to as benchmarks. We have a safety branch, a health branch, and consultation. Together, there's a minimum of 22 positions that are required. When Governor Abercrombie came into office, none of the 3 had been attained. And through a collaborative effort and the direction provided by the governor of how important this was, today we can say all three have been achieved. And I think the additional agreements that are part of the OSA will allow us then to have those staff positions really fulfill, their mission in a meaningful way.
So all 22 are back?
Yes, we have all 22 filled.
And then in your assessment, sir, maybe from the federal side, the kinds of things that happened, inappropriate classifications or misassignments to that, did you find that it's attributable to fewer people trying to do multiple jobs, or were there other problems you found that weren't only explained by short staff?
Well, I think in looking at the findings that we had in 2008, 2009, and 2010, as we moved forward looking at improving the program and working with Hawaii, certainly the low staff and the lack of, or the inability to train staff quick enough led to the majority of the findings.
And you were explaining, sir, that sort of the difference between what usually falls into OSHA category versus state. Now that OSHA will be in there, employer gets a knock on the door who isn't used to seeing an OSHA. Will they say, "Hi, I'm OSHA on behalf of the state"? How does this work in enforcement going forward?
They're going to say, we're from the government and we're here to help you.
Absolutely.
A little mom and pop shop that might have say, "Oh, I thought I was too small for OSHA." How will this collaboration work when it comes to an enforcement visit or calls or contacts?
Yeah, I think OSHA works synonymously nationwide, and so when HIOSH inspectors show up and say, we're from OSHA here, we're here to conduct an inspection, it's going to happen the same way. The slight differences that they will see, obviously, it would be under federal jurisdiction. So if they were to file a notice of contest, it would go to through our process rather than through the state's process, notice of contest. But as far as the issuance of citations and the on-site inspection, they really shouldn't see any noticeable difference.
Will the fines bump up to a federal level, or all stay at sort of state level? State rules?
Well, again, I mean, the rules that HIOSH has, as well as our rules, are very similar with regard to penalty amounts. So whether or not there'd be an increase in penalties, I couldn't say.
Our object with HIOSH, with the Hawaii branch, is not to have penalties. Our object is to be preventative, to reach out and say, here's where we think things need to be done, and here's what we think we can do to help you accomplish that. That's the principal thing. We're not looking for either coercion or for finding fault. We're looking for ways to try to indicate to people how they can make their workplaces more safe, and how the health and safety standards can be met, and we're going to try and work in a collaborative way to help people accomplish that. It's in everybody's interest. Sure.
Perhaps just to add to those comments, when we looked at this, the entire situation, there were sort of 3 steps we identified that needed to be taken. The first was internal. We had to fill the vacancies. We had to get the staff. We had to get the people put into position. The second was then training, so that through the training and mentoring and all of that, the staff could be brought up to speed. And this OSA that is being signed today tremendously advances, that need. The third step was, as the governor said, under this administration, collaboration, working together. Within the Department of Labor and Industrial Relations, we have a HIOSH Advisory Council made up of employers and labor organizations that represent workers, and we've been working with them because certainly part of the first step of this is to educate those who may be impacted. And even today, there was a meeting with the transportation people, and I think we've had about 7 of these meetings thus far, reaching out to over 300 people. We're going to continue to have them so that we can have this dialogue, and certainly through the collective effort, our goal is really, in the most meaningful way, to implement the purposes of the law.
Our goal, obviously, is to have a zero balance at the end of the year. No deaths, no injuries, a healthy environment, workers' compensation down, lawsuits, etc., eliminated. So that's why we have the outreach to business and labor and an educational process underway. You'll never hear about HIOSH. You'll never hear about the Hawaii occupational safety and health inspectors. Never hear unless something goes terribly wrong. That's when all of a sudden everybody is interested. So the best possible publicity for HIOSH is no publicity at all, because that means everything is going the way it should. And so we're maximizing the opportunity to not have any press conferences.
Do we owe the feds any money for their services, or conversely, if we hadn't done this, would we have been facing fines in addition to risk of life?
Yeah, certainly no fines regarding federal OSHA and state OSHA. The way the program works is the state plans are funded through a grant. And so Hawaii has a grant process in place. And through that process, we're going to look at the expenditure of funds over 2013. To the extent that all the funds are not expended, we may be able to transfer that money over to support our efforts. But as far as us coming here and doing the work that we need to do, that's going to be funded by federal OSHA.
Just
Similarly, Governor, I don't know if
yes.
a stretch to a different department, but again, short staffing.
Yes.
Affected the DLNR with Shifty and its.
No, you're not making a comment when you say short staffing about stature or anything, are you? Okay.
But Shifty having to go under the corrective action.
Yes. Yes. That's a good example. Yeah.
Are there, number
Sure.
one, are there any others of note, or even if that's the only
I don't think, offhand, I don't think so, but that's another good example where we're working for those who don't know what we're talking about, it's a state historical preservation branch, because that covers a multitude of areas having to do with archaeology, having to do with land and natural resources, having to do with cultural practices, historic preservation, etc. So that was another department that got hit very, very hard by reductions in force, by layoffs, and it's not easy to come back and do this. Why we're taking some time here with HIOSH is the folks. This is not just something you walk off the street and start doing. You have to have your internal training, your professional development, and the state historic preservation branch is a similarly tasked operation. People have to be capable. They have to be competent. They have to have experience that is not easy to gain before you take that position. So, in any event, the shorter answer to that is we're doing something similar there, and we hope to be able to meet that criteria within weeks. I don't have the exact date. Gina, maybe you've got it, but I think it's within a month or so. And I have pretty good assurance that we're going to be on track. Being on track doesn't mean we're going to be as far as we'd like to be, but we're going to be meeting those obligations that have been made known to us. And we're coming back from a pretty deep hole, or coming out of a pretty deep hole, and we think we've filled it in a manner that real progress can be seen, and it gives us a foundation to make improvements in the weeks and months to come.
To sustain the accomplishments on both sides, whether with labor in this case or land natural resources the other, is it general fund, or DLNR's case, would it be PLC?
There's a combination.
Fund this so in the next budget cuts the same thing?
Well, hopefully President Obama will be reelected in a Democratic Congress so that we can have a cooperative venture between the federal government and the state government with private enterprise to see to it that we have sufficient funding for a sufficient number of positions. So this commitment, if you will, is based on our capacity to respond with funding and the appropriate positions, and that's a cooperative venture between the federal government and the state. If there was another administration that had a different attitude, then I can't account for it. But I can say, as long as the Obama administration is in office, and as long as Senator Inouye is in the majority in the United States Senate, that we'll continue to have this kind of federal-state cooperation. One final thing on that is that Ken mentioned that this began in 1970, and this was before I was elected. It was before Dwight was elected, probably before Ken was born. But Senator Inouye was instrumental at that time in pursuing this. And this was at the time when Dwight's father had responsibility in the state legislature in this area. And so this is of long standing, the whole question of occupational health and safety, of long standing. And it's a particular pleasure for me, having come in as a rookie legislator in 1974 when OSHA was just getting underway as a result of some of the pioneer efforts of people like Dwight's father and Senator Inouye, that to see that we have the opportunity to keep faith with what was first promulgated almost 4 decades ago. And so I'm confident that our commitment is not only going to be observed, but that the Federal Occupational Safety and Health Office will be well pleased with the results they'll see in Hawaii. Thank you very much. Nice to see all you folks.
Thank you.
Outstanding.
Nice to see you. Good, good. Thanks, everybody. Mahalo. Good work, all.
Yeah, yeah.
I got to go this way.